Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Dr. Sadia Zafar, and today I will discuss about the unsustainable use of ecosystem. As we know that ecosystem is so important for us. An ecosystem with large biodiversity is more sustainable. Means the sustainability of an ecosystem directly depend on the biodiversity. An ecosystem with richest biodiversity are more sustainable, and the ecosystem that have low biodiversity are greatly unsustainable. The following anthropogenic threats can be identified among the major cause of unsustainability. The first one is tropical rainforest are being destroyed for opening land for agricultural purpose, and the grassland are losing their richness and productivity due to grazing pressure. Wetlands and coastal areas are being filled for agriculture purpose or used for urbanization, and the water bodies like rivers, lakes, wetlands, mangroves, and many others are being polluted through eutrophication and the contamination which is produced by industries or other sources. Means contamination caused by industrial effluents or sewage water. Factor causing the ecosystem unsustainability. There are many factors that contribute to ecosystem unsustainability, like the water overuse and over-exploitation of the organisms and over-harvesting and the excessive logging and the presence of invasive species that disturb the natural flora and fauna and exotic species and pollution and global climate change. These are the main factors that cause the unsustainability in the ecosystem. Water overuse. Increasing human population has raised the demand of water use per person. In other words, as human population increased or other organisms population increase, that also increases the use of water. Now we need more water for agriculture, household and industry. Humans also have constructed the dams and changed the natural flow of rivers and streams. The water tables had considerable low level due to over extraction of groundwater that cause a significant threat to the ecosystem sustainability, and many ecosystems are threatened due to disturbance in water table. Next is the over-exploitation. Over-exploitation of natural world takes many forms. The forests are destroyed for different purposes like lumber, agriculture, that result in the loss of biodiversity. Means we use the forest for different purpose and that direct affect the biodiversity. And nearly all of the oceans of the world are fully exploited or over-exploited, with most fisheries expected to finished within the next 40 years if fishing practices are not changed. The world soils are also being depleted at a rapid rate, leading to desertification and loss of agricultural productivity. A key example of this is in grasslands, where the monocropping depletes the soil of any and all usable nutrients, which makes it unstable for both the agriculture and for the natural plants and species that live there. If any of its forms is overexploited, this overexploitation leaves the ecosystems impaired and less capable of supporting the life. Means that can't support the life. Over harvesting. Fish species, game, and special plants all do fall victim from time to time as a result of over harvesting or human over dependence on them. Means over usage of that biodiversity. Over harvesting leads to the reduction in populations, community structures, and distributions, with an overall reduction in requirement. Lots of fish species are known to have reached their maximum exploitation level, and other will soon be. This figure representing the Atlantic bluefin tuna that is currently overexploited, and the scientists say 7,500 tons annually is sustainable limit. Yet the fishing industry continue to harvest the 60,000 tons. So there is over exploitation of the fish, and that will be extinct in future. Overgrazing. Excessive logging. The World Bank reported that the net loss of global forest between 1990 and 2016 was 1.3 million square kilometer. How much loss? That was the 1.3 million square kilometers. On the same note, the tropical deforestation is estimated to occur at a rate of 1% annually, and people are clearing the forest for their basic needs for agricultural purpose due to increase in population, means increase in population pressure that affect the forest. Humans are also cutting down the trees to make the space for residential complexes. Through deforestation, the planet not only loses the tree but also other type of organisms, means thousands of animals and great plant biodiversity due to the destruction of their natural habitats. Moreover, increase the logging activities lead to the soil erosion that degrades the natural soil minerals. Next factor is the invasive species. Invasive species are those species that become aggressive and cover most of the land and utilize maximum resources of that ecosystem and disturb the other biodiversity of that ecosystem, means this species dominate in that ecosystem and suppress the other species. Invasive plant and animal species disturb the ecosystem by taking over ecological niches within their adopted home, preying on or driving out the native species and disrupting the food chains and other interdependent systems. The common rat is a species that has invaded countless areas of the world since age of exploration. The invasive species tend to have no natural predator in the new ecosystem, allowing them to reproduce. And invasive plant species can take over the large amount of land, forcing out the other plants and destroying the natural habitat and food sources of local animal population. Invasive species are introduced species with growing populations that spread and have negative effect on their environment. Exotic species introduced into foreign ecosystem that can threaten the native species by compe- competing for resources, predation, and diseases. Exotic species introduced to new environment or new ecosystem, new area, often reset the ecological conditions in that new habitat, threatening the species that exist there. There is a reason that they are also termed invasive species. Means exotic species may become invasive species. UV radiation, the sun rays, play an important role in living things. UV rays come in three main wavelengths: UVA, UVB, and UVC, and they have different properties. Means different type of the wavelengths have different properties. The UVA has long wavelengths and reaches the Earth's surface all the time. It helps generate the vitamin D for living things. Means it is useful for improving the vitamin D in humans and other organisms. And UVB and UVC are more destructive and can cause DNA and cell damage to plants and animals. So these wavelengths are more dangerous and have destructive results or impacts. Ozone depletion is one way that exposes the living things to UVB and UVC, and the harm caused can wipe lots of species, means they cause extinction of many species and affect the ecosystem numbers, including the human. Overburning of fossil fuel. In 1998, the last year for which the global data are available for both the population and heat trapping, the carbon dioxide emissions per capita emission of carbon dioxide continued the upward trend that dominated the middle 1990s. When combined with growing world population, these increased the emission, accelerated the accumulation of greenhouse gases in global atmosphere, and thus the future global warming. With 4.6% of world's population, the US contributed close to 24% of all emissions from fossil fuel combustion and cement manufacture. By far the largest carbon dioxide contributor among the nations. Emissions remained harmful or dangerous for the ecosystem and for the biodiversity, and with 1/5 of the world's population accounting for 62% of all emissions, while other and much poorer fifth accounted for less than 2%. Pollution. As we know that pollution has negative impact on the ecosystem. The industrial and agricultural pollution is prevalent throughout the world, with man-made chemicals found in virtually all environmental niches. Some ecosystem examples with pollution damage. The pollution from the mining contaminates 40% of western rivers in US, that poisoning the aquatic life and bioaccumulation of the food chain. Many chemical pollutants, including pesticides, plastics, disrupt the animal hormonal activity and reproduction and reducing the biodiversity in water and on land. The organic nutrients from agricultural runoff result in aquatic algae blooms that deplete the dissolved oxygen level, creating dead zones in coastal areas nearly major river in many areas of the world, human pollution has destroyed the entire ecosystem, leaving the land and water unable to support the life. Pollution can affect the air quality and temperature. It is one of the leading causes of the global warming and climate change. These adjustments to key abiotic factors affect virtually all ecosystems across the world. Increased temperature lead to change the ocean currents, temperatures, plant growth, and more, all of which affects the food webs and relationship within ecosystem. Eutrophication is the enrichment of water bodies with plant biomass. As a result of continuous inflow of the nutrients, especially the nitrogen and phosphorus, eutrophication of water fuels excessive the plant and algae growth and also hurts the water life, often resulting in the loss of flora and fauna diversity. The known consequences of the cultural eutrophication include the blooms of blue-green algae, that is cyanobacteria, tainted the drinking water supplies, degradation of recreational opportunities, and hypoxia. The estimated cost of damage mediated by eutrophication is approximately $2.2 billion annually. Disposal of industrial and agricultural waste. Most of the industrial and agricultural waste are in soil or water bodies without any proper treatment or handling of the waste material, and these waste cause a significant problem of pollution and increases the unsustainability of ecosystem. For example, the use of byproducts such as paddy straw and rice husk has not been made properly. The burning of such byproducts creates increase in carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in the atmosphere, resulting in respiratory problems for animals and human beings. There is a need for recycling the agricultural waste by having the enterprises like dairy, fishery, poultry and other processing of byproducts in the field as organic matter. Climate change, global warming threatens the ecosystem throughout the world. Human caused greenhouse gas emissions cause increasing the amount of heat to be absorbed by the atmosphere, leading to rising the global average temperature. The climate models in, indicate the possible average temperature increase of between 4 and 10 degree Fahrenheit during the next century. As air and water warm, many species will be unable to tolerate the higher temperatures. Those that cannot migrate to a sustainable climate will become extinct and degrading the ecosystem all around the globe. This figure representing the effect of climate change on same ecosystem means change in climate that directly affect the ecosystem disturb the biodiversity of that ecosystem. Some natural hazards also affect the ecosystem or disturb the biodiversity. Most common is the fire, especially the forest fires that has more harm of the ecosystem or biodiversity. Overpopulation. The total global population is more than 7 billion people. Still, there is a consistent increase in the overall Earth population, and this has been a critical factor in accelerating the depletion of natural resources. An increase in population expand the need for resources and conditions necessary to sustain the life. In addition, it contributes to increase the ecological contamination and decreases their sustainability. Anthropogenic activities, that is the major factor that cause the unsustainability to an ecosystem. Humans use different biodiversity for different purpose and disrupting the biodiversity of that ecosystem. Intensive agriculture. Increasing the agriculture has increased the demand of food for growing the human population. This leads to increase the clearing of forest and non-forested ecosystem to croplands. It had threatened the sustainability of natural ecosystem, and endangered hundreds of species living there. There are some references, and thank you so much, students, for your attention.